Let us look at why South African consumers are in deep trouble in terms of money spending and also challenges in terms of money availability. So, this is part of the banking sector because generally people that are able or industry that is able to gather more data about your spending, it's generally going to be your bank because they see when you swap to make purchases, they see when the money get in, where it's coming from. So we are in the financial services news where we are right now, and we're trying to gather why we are in deep trouble and how can we solve the problem or reduce the issues of struggling financially. So first we need to understand what actually is the problem, then we can be able to say this could be ways to rectify the problem, right? So let us see what they are saying. They say South African consumers are still under immense financial pressure, with spending growth slowing despite a sharp decline in inflation and interest rates beginning to come down. So what is said here is that we have seen that the interest rate is starting to go down, and then the inflation is also much better compared to where it was last year. But South Africans are still struggling. So we need to understand what is that? What is the main purpose or the main reason that despite the interest rate going down and inflation also going down, but we are still struggling in terms of having more disposable income available. Consumers are also looking beyond credits and loans for additional cash to spend, with many tapping their retirement savings under the new two-pot system. So, what now the banks are saying? They're saying they see you that now your main point of survival is that you have more credit card, you get more loans, and also you have also tap into new two-pot system. So that basically what they've analyzed in terms of how you spend, where you get money from. So they have realized that now what we are surviving out of, we are surviving out of credit cards, loans, as well as we are also taking two pots in order to continue surviving, right? And then the bank then uses this data to inform the new products and service it develops to improve its existing product set. So what the banks then are using, they see how you spend your money, they see where you get your money from, and then in order for them to work on what more product they can offer, they will use information. So by spending more on your card, then you allow the banks to understand what are you spending your money on. So that is why they collect this data. They're not only collecting to produce the information to the public, but they're also collecting the data so that they can use the data to make informed strategic decision for the profit or the growth of the bank. So they're saying consumers continue to hunt for value in South Africa, drawing back to discretionary spending on travel and entertainment. So, generally, it has been noted that South Africans are spending more money on discretionary spending, on travel, as well as entertainment. Seems like we like to travel and also we like entertainment, but it's concerning that we like traveling and entertainment, but we are using loan as well as credit card in order to accomplish that needs. So that is a bit concerning. Let's go down and read. These drawbacks were also used to fund increased fuel expenditure as South Africa returned to the office. Okay, we know as well that now we're starting to go back to the offices. So it also communicates that, okay, so, what is putting strain on us is the money that we spend on petrol in order to go back to the office, which we're not doing from 2021 when we started to work from home. So now we see what is happening. So, now what is happening? We're spending money on entertainment, we're spending money on traveling, and also on fuel. So, that is where our money is going. So, now we will know if we want to reduce spending, where should we tap on? So we can see, okay, we're spending money on those three major things. Then how do we reduce the spending by tapping on those three things? Okay, now we have the graph here I will explain the graph and then we'll understand what it means, right? So we've been given three parameters here. The parameter number one is inflation. The second one is spending growth. And then the last part is average prime interest rate. So why are we using average prime interest rate for the prime rate is because during the years, it's not the same. So we have to work on average throughout the period that we're looking on. Let us start looking at average prime interest rate. If we're looking at 2021, 2022, our average was sitting at 8.79%. Then when we move to 2022, 2023 financial year, it then was 11.50%, right? And then when we move to 2023, 2024, it went up a little bit. It's 11.63%. We can see why we're also having a challenge here. You can see that what actually happened when the average prime interest rate was low, we had more available to spend, right? And then we then looking at the inflation. The inflation, it's steady, it's almost the same. What is heavily influenced here is spend. It's spend, right? The spending growth is going down, but we see that the inflation on the other side, it's a little bit it's steady for 2021, 2022, and 2022, 2023, and it went down for 2023, 2024. Now, what is concerning is that why the spending is going down, while on the other side we can see that the inflation is going down or went down from the previous 2 years. Obviously, we can see that the interest rate has a little bit of influence on that in terms of our spending, because that means we have to spend more money on our mortgage or bonds because the interest rate is higher compared to where it was 2021, 2023. And then the next graph, I want us to look at its average spend per active card across South African citizen. Yeah, indexed to South African 2021, right? So now let us look from to index South African 2019. Apologies. So if we're looking from 2019 to 2024, you can see what is actually happening here. So South Africa average spend, it's around 1, right? 1 point, right? And then if we're looking at the spending of the major cities, right, being your Johannesburg, which is the purple one, and then being your Cape Town, which is red, and your Pretoria being purple, as well as Durban being blue, right? You can see it's above South African average because we have communicated that those people who are staying in the city, most of them, not all of them, are mainly wealthy people. So you can see then their spend is a little bit higher compared to the entire South African. So that communicates why the graph is looking like this. Then let's look how South Africans are coping, right? So it was explained that South Africans are increasingly turning to credit and retirement savings to supplement their disposable income, reflecting the immense pressure consumers are under, right? So basically, it what we've explained at the top that basically now we're at the point where we only survive out of going through two part or using credit, right? So which is not a good way for us to survive, but that way we are currently sitting, and which is why I'm going to explain what are the things that we have to do in order to refrain finding ourselves spending so much money on the three items that I have communicated, which is entertainment, travel, as well as fuel. The number of credit card in use across South Africa has increased by 53% since 2020, and the demand for loans remains strong. So you can see here, banks are making a lot of money out of us because now we taking credit cards and loans, and there's a high interest rate on those borrowings because they do not have any collateral. So it's going to be higher compared to any other form of debt. While more cards being used, and average new credit limits have increased, overall spending per active card has remained steady. This also means the consumers are using multiple credit cards to tap extra sources for credits, and that people are optimizing rewards and benefits by strategically using different cards. The bank's consumer survey with Visa revealed that 84% of South Africans prioritize rewards and cashback when spending. This is supported by spending data, which show that consumers tend to spend more at loyalty partners than elsewhere. Over 80% of South Africans are engaged more with their credit card rewards and benefits than they did a year ago. Another way in which South Africans have been supplementing their income to support spending is by tapping into their retirement savings under the Newport system. By 2024, when the system had only been implemented for 4 months, over 1.9 million withdrawals had been processed through SARS and over 35 million were drawn, right? So basically, banks are collecting all this information to understand what are you doing with your card, right? And with the money received and money spent. So what they're saying they realize that what you do, you spend more money on the loyalty partners. It's gonna be your Checkers if you have reward points at Checkers. You rather go to Checkers and buy groceries there. If you have a reward point at Macro, you rather spend more money at Macro in order to gain rewards. Okay, this basically summarizes our article in terms of how banks get data, what you use your money on, as well as where do you use your money more frequently, right? Now let us look at how do you ensure that you still have disposable income, right? After month end or during the month that you have money on, right? Number one, limits to travel, unnecessary travel, right? So I know that most people they like to say, I want to go to Mozambique, I want to go to Botswana, I want to go to overseas. You do not have to use a credit card or loans to satisfy travel need. Try by all means that the travel needs are only done with the money that is disposable or available, not the credit, right? That's number one. Number two, try to find out with the employer whether there is no way that you can spend more time at home as opposed to at work. That's mainly for people that they know that they can still do their work at home. They don't have to be at the office. That means you're going to reduce the amount of money on the petrol that you spend when you're going to the office. What else you can look at for is that entertainment. We're spending a lot of money on entertainment. It could be alcohol, you going to restaurant or any other form of entertainment. So when you do decide that you're going for entertainment, ask yourself how important is it for you to go for that entertainment. For me, I'll say reduce the entertainment. If you go on entertainment every week, try to reduce entertainment. Find out that on 3 weeks per month, 3 weekends rather per month, what you can do to in order to develop yourself. It's either going to be you watching movies, you on YouTube channel, or whatever the case may be that will not be spending money on entertainment. So ask yourself, how are you going to minimize the spending? Because you don't want to leave out of credit card and loans, right? So you can do that by minimizing things where you spend a lot of money on. Right. So that was it for me for today. Thank you so much for listening to my YouTube channel. Can you please like, subscribe, and share to anyone that you believe might be interested to consume this content? Thank you so much. Bye.